For 144 glorious days this year, Commander Chris Hadfield orbited the Earth, traveled almost 100 million kilometers, and refocused the world's attention on the sheer wonder of space travel.
This view is magnetic and mesmerizing.
The first Canadian to command the International Space Station, the first Canadian to float freely in space, and the first person, it's believed, to release a music video filmed in space.
Ground control to Major Tom.
That little gem, by the way, got a nod from David Bowie himself. Chris became the most celebrated astronaut since Neil Armstrong, whose moon landing back in 1969 was an inspiration to the young Chris growing up in Milton, Ontario. Now, while aboard the ISS, where he and his crew performed more than 130 science experiments, Chris took spectacular photos of our country and our planet. But what separates his experience was that he shared them all with us for his nearly 1 million Twitter followers. And now he's back on Earth with a book to boot. We'll ask him what it really feels like and what you can really learn from floating in space. Commander Chris Hadfield!
Good to be here.
Yeah, so great to see you.
Thanks very much.
What a treat. I mean, I had to imagine, as much as your experience was so wonderful for you and the science that you were able to do, did you have any idea what it meant to a lot of us who are following you down here?
Sort of theoretically, yeah. It was, I mean, it is such a magnificent experience at so many levels, but it's so busy. And I could see numbers and I could, get a rough idea that there were a lot of people paying attention, but...
You went up to space with 20,000 Twitter followers, dude. Now you've got near 1 million, right? That's unbelievable.
That's a lot, yeah, I know. But I was just, focused so hard on trying to get the work done, paying attention, the view out the window, you wouldn't believe. And then I'd come in at night and check, email and stuff in my little sleep pod and go, wow, there's a whole bunch of people paying attention. That's cool, that's great. But it was just sort of one of the many things that was happening.
And it was that busy, so you get up early, it's like 6 to 1 a.m., is that your schedule?
Yeah, I got up 6 in the morning every morning. This watch here was in space with me, and it's got a really loud alarm. Woke up every morning at 6 o'clock. It's really neat. I actually kept the watch strap loose because you could watch, it was like having a snake on my wrist the whole time. It would fly and float.
Yeah.
And I felt like some sort of strange mental deficient just watching my watch float around all the time.
That's what it says about me, because I would do the same again.
Just going, wow, look at that. Anyway, it would ring at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I get up, get things cleaned up. We'd have a briefing with everybody in all the mission controls around the world at about 8. We'd work all day long, exercise in there, evening, clean up, get ready for the next day. Do a little stuff in the evening, get to sleep around 1 in the morning, float off to sleep, and then repeat for 5 months.
What's sleep like up there?
It's like everybody dreams sleep ought to be, in that the straight reality of it is you can just relax every muscle in your body. You're floating in space inside a sleeping bag, and it has like 2 shoelaces that tie it to the wall. So this sleeping bag is like just like at the grocery store when you have that little thing with all your plastic bags. It's just sort of floating there. You float yourself down into it, zip it up, pull the little doors closed, like thunk, thunk, because they're little like saloon doors on your sleep pod, and then flick the light off, and then you just relax. And your arms float up, and your legs float up, and your head tips forward, and then everything is relaxed. It's just, it's a wonderful, you'd like it. It's a wonderful way to sleep.
But it sounds like it's almost womb-like.
I don't remember exactly.
But me neither, but I've seen enough movies, both how the babies are made and then after. But no, there's this idea of just kind of,
When you see pictures of the fetus in the womb, that's the exact position you're in.
Right.
That completely relaxed, almost a developmental state. And yeah, so it's wonderfully relaxing. However, when you close your eyes up there, because you're above the atmosphere, you get a lot more radiation. Mm-hmm. There's not the air to protect us. And so you actually see high energy particles from the universe go through your optic nerve when you close your eyes.
Hold on.
As you're drifting off to sleep.
Explain that to me.
Well, you're trying to drift off to sleep, and then there's like a lightning flash in one eye. And when the first astronauts saw that, they didn't tell anybody. They're like, I'm not telling anybody I saw that. But then I'm sure 2 astronauts must have wondered, do you see lightning flashes in your eyes sometimes? And it turns out it's the high energy, subatomic kind of particles that are coming from the universe. Sometimes they're going through your body all the time, but sometimes they go through your eye and through the optic nerve, and you see it as a flash of energy. So it's kind of a reminder of where you are.
You've seen the sorts of things that we only ever see in pictures or online, and most of the time we've only ever seen them because you posted them. But there's this idea of what might happen to your own psychology when you see it. This is an old school clip, somebody talking about response to this.
Oh.
So I turned to the local university and asked them to help me with what I saw. And when they came back to me a few weeks later and said, well, in the ancient literature, we found a description called Salvakapa Samadhi. And they said that means that you see things as you see them with your eyes, but you experience them emotionally and viscerally as with ecstasy and a sense of total unity and oneness. And I said, well, that's exactly what the experience was.
That to me. So that's Ed Mitchell. And again, because I don't know all the details of the science, what I found so fascinating about your experience is just on a cellular level, that experience, the overview effect.
Yeah, it is such an experience at so many levels. Just straight at the awareness level, when you open your eyes and look at the world, it is as if this huge living thing next to you is very deliberately showing you its secrets. It's like, you thought that last orbit around was interesting? Look at this time. Look at this. Watch this. Just look at this. And so you're getting that visually, but then subconsciously, you're soaking it up as well. And every night as you're drifting off to sleep, you're trying to convince yourself, how can I possibly be here amongst all this? And how am I going to rationalize this? And now when I go outside and I watch the space station go over, this star going across the horizon, I still... you can see sort of both the peace and the confusion that's in Ed Mitchell's mind, because to try and integrate that experience and that visual thing going over top of my head with just regular life back on Earth, I'm still not completely settled with it.
This is something else. What is the support group in place to go and share that?
For Ed, it was terrible. I mean, the initial moonwalkers, they had an extremely limited psychological kind of support group, and they didn't have anybody to ask. I mean, who are they going to go ask? What's it like to walk on the moon? Who are you going to ask, So, and some of them came back with a lot of difficulty to deal with it. Buzz Aldrin's written about it. Being able to cover up the world with your thumb, to be that isolated from everybody else. But now it is better. We've learned from those guys. I've talked to them, and we actually call them psych support. We have psychological support people. They're the ones who put the guitar on the space station for me. They try to anticipate the potential effects that it might have on you and give you as many links as possible. They're largely responsible for having, the Twitter on board, is that level of technology where I could talk to people directly, where I could phone my wife, talk to my son in China, where we could do that, where I could phone Neil Young and talk to Neil Young on the phone.
No big deal.
Have a video. And I had a nice talk with Neil about the experience. So that really helped a lot, that you felt very connected, even though you were physically so isolated.
The images of you after you're in the pod when you landed, and then they kind of drag you out in a seemingly violent way, then you sit there. The look on your face was not pleasant. It was the only time I'd seen you where I thought, I can't tell if he's really ill right now or he's pissed.
I wasn't pissed at all. I was just ill. It's if you're on a ride at the fair that just spins you end over end and your gyros are completely tumbled and you're completely woozy, all you want to do is throw up. And actually, because the real problem is your inner ear has been working for months without gravity, and your eyes have taken over. Your eyes say this way is right side up. Suddenly, unexpectedly for your body, there's this gravity coming through your ear, and your body's so confused. It's going, your eyes are telling you one thing, but your balance system is telling you something completely different. So your body thinks, what could have caused this? Probably you just ate a neurotoxin, right? You ate something that has completely messed up your balance system. So your body's going, red alert, protect him, make him throw up, get rid of that thing, and make him go lie down so that he stops metabolizing it so fast, because this might kill him. So your body's just using a million-year-old reflex to try and protect you, and it is throw up and go lie down. And so that's all I wanted to do. But instead, I'm like there facing the TV cameras, and I'm calling my wife and going, "How'd the Leafs do?" And
Did she tell?
She said, "I'm sorry, they lost."
Did she describe the last few minutes of that series against Boston?
No, she spared me. No.
Speaking of your family and the guitar, let's go back. I love this picture, this visual.
You guys can sing if you like. The sons came from across the land to help them through.
It was a while ago.
And last night in the kitchen was the missus' dream come true. Though he knows what he's doing, it doesn't make sense to him. He'll never reap all that he's sown.
20 years ago, man.
That was a while ago. That's nice to see. I haven't seen that in a long time.
20 years ago on the 5th Estate, I think you did that, right?
Yeah, nice.
I was thinking about your family. You have been more honest about it than I've seen other people be about it, and I think your choice to go honor your wife's promise you made to your wife now.
Yeah.
Did you, I don't know, do you feel like you're a ghost in your family? To accomplish the goal you had to accomplish, man, there's almost no way you could have done both. Be the guy that was there and be the guy getting ready for this.
I hope I wasn't a ghost in my family. I woke up every single morning going, okay, today I'm going to do a little better than I did yesterday. And these are my objectives for the day. These are my objectives at work, and these are my objectives at home. I'm going to try and get this stuff done. And then I go to bed that night and go, ugh, you know, the false hopes of the morning sacrificed on the altar of reality for the day, right? And I would go to bed at night and go, man, I did that right, but oh, I blew this part, or oh gosh, how did I not get that right? And it's just as true for work as it was for family. And everyone has to strike that balance, right? How much can you put into each of the things that are important to you? And I think we all get it wrong to some degree.
But are you a systems guy?
I'm a machine guy.
Right, so emotions and other people and relationships, machines, it's so hard to figure that out.
Yeah, people are, you know, orbital mechanics is nothing. People are complicated. And, you know, my wife and I talk about it, of course, and she's said to me many times, all you can do is your best. And you can't let yourself get driven crazy by things that you weren't capable of doing or opportunities that have already gone past. And all you can really try and do is your best and keep readdressing it on a daily basis. And maybe something that you blew today, you can get a little better tomorrow. And I mean, my kids are all adults, and they're all happily pursuing what they're interested in. And my son moved all the way to China, so maybe he, I don't know if I scared him off or not, but no, they're good, productive people, and they're happy in the lives that they're following, so I could not hope for more.
There's a quote from your son, which is so fascinating. I'm sure you've read this when he published in the Globe and Mail.
Oh.
When he was talking about, you know, if somebody loses their father or their parent, then the death is private. But he said, if my father dies doing his job, then his death won't be. I won't just have to watch him explode before my eyes. I'll have to see him explode on TV over and over and over again.
Yeah.
What did you think when you read that?
Yeah, it's kind of a different role, as you know, to be somewhat of a public figure and trying to raise a family privately. And we talked about it, of course, as a family, you know, and I tried to include them in the stuff that was going on as much as possible, not to expose them, but to at least include them so they saw what was going on. But I was kind of surprised that when the Columbia accident happened, you know, that was in 2003. I'd already flown in space twice. I'd been a test pilot before. You know, death is awful, but it's not abnormal. But for them, somehow they'd been young enough that my first two flights, they thought I was immortal, I guess. And it was only Columbia that really struck home to them that I do a very dangerous thing by riding a rocket ship. And they were terrified, which I didn't realize. They were terrified to watch me ride the Soyuz rocket up the third time, because now they were old enough to understand the consequences and the risks involved.
How do you mitigate that? How do you explain that to them?
I did the best I could, talking to them in advance. When they revealed to me that they were scared about it, that's a good time to talk about it. But you can give them all the statistics you want, and you can talk about the odds, but they're the ones who are facing exactly that. And my wife has expressed it so well. She says, if you die, you're going to die sometime anyway. If you die at this thing, you love what you're doing, it'll be an awful thing, but we can deal with it. We have life insurance, we'll get through this. But what I don't want is every year on the anniversary of your death for someone to come to my door and say, so how do you feel now? So it's been a nice round number of years. How bad do you feel now? Yeah. She said, I don't want to be defined by something that happened to you 5 years ago, like the Challenger spouses are, or like the Columbia spouses are. And she said, if you die, I can deal with that. But the rest of that, I really don't want to have to deal with. So thank you for not dying.
Boy, you must have a hell of an insurance policy for her to be so relaxed,
Yeah.
So you can't possibly be done, but you're done?
Gosh, I sure hope I'm not done. Yeah. Speaking of death, but
no, I don't mean that. We are all made of stardust, and you are literally in the stardust now, so you're fine. Whatever happens after we die, you'll be one of the guys running the show.
No, my wife and I talked about it her name's Helena. Helena and I talked about it for a lot of years. When do we know we're finished with this? How do you know when it's time to stop doing something that was really the end game of your dreams? Yeah. How do you know it's time? And she basically gave us two thresholds. One was when you wake up 2 mornings in a row and you don't want to go to work, where you not just, you're like tired, but where you truly hate the idea of going to do your job, and you do that 2 mornings in a row, then it's time to think about, maybe I better change professions, because if it's 2 mornings in a row and I fundamentally don't want to, but I never once in 21 years as an astronaut woke up even once where I wasn't just dying to get to work that day. So that never occurred. So our other threshold was, we will not leave the astronaut business while there's still a chance of flying in space, because it's such a rare experience, and it's one I chose to do when I was 9 years old, that I set as a possible goal for my life. So,
and Canadians weren't doing that.
No, not at all. It was impossible when I was 9. It wasn't hard. It didn't exist.
How long from when you first thought to yourself you wanted to do it before you could vocalize it to others?
Well, I mean, my wife and I met her when she was 14. And so I told her when she was in her teens that, hey, what I'd really like to do someday is fly in space. And she was like, yeah, sure, great, nice plan. But it was really in 1983 when Canada got invited by NASA to have some astronauts come fly on the space shuttle, that suddenly I could step up and go, hey, this might really happen. I wasn't ready yet. I was just learning to be a F-18 pilot at the time. But you could see that, you could see that that now Canada was going to have astronauts, and so it went from being a little boy's pipe dream to actually something Canadians are going to do. And so I could really readdress my efforts to try and be ready the next time the selection came around, which happened 8 or 9 years later in 1992.
It's incredible what the Canada arm meant, because every picture that we saw, to see that Canada arm was a really, it's ingrained in my memory. I'm 41, it's my whole idea of the space world. I see that little symbol.
Canadians need to be proud of the Canadarm. You go through the quick history of the thing. We started out with an early satellite that had this pathetic little arm on it called STEM. From that, we got an invitation to build the arm for the space shuttle. That arm, I mean, it made the Hubble telescope work. It did multiple satellites. It did wonderful work on the shuttle. That got us the invitation to build the arm on the space station, which built the whole space station. We built the space station. And from that, it built the research arm that's in the end, which is SPDM, which the granddaughter of that is working in the Foothills Hospital in Calgary, which does brain surgery inside an MRI machine with the surgeon sitting outside using robotic controllers. And that's being used in hospitals around the world. And that arm is on the $5 bill that comes out in November. That arm has been huge for our country, culturally and scientifically and technically, and everybody should be hugely proud of that.
It's the best arm in the business. Stick around, more with Chris Hadfield after this.
Chris, Bill Shatner, we talked on the phone while you were flying overhead, and I was relaxed in my bathrobe on a lounge chair in Los Angeles. But now, and I asked you several questions and you answered them, and you even invited me up to your cottage, and I've been there. You don't know it, but it's a wonderful cottage, and I left everything pretty much intact. The question I want to ask you is, what were you thinking as this engine is going off and this fire and chaos underneath you, and you're beginning to accelerate up, and you know you got 3 stages, and you know it's friction on the air and debris and ice crystals. What were you thinking, man? Why? What did you think? Why am I doing this? The kids need me? Chris, what were you thinking?
Thank you, Bill Shatner.
That's funny. You know, the conversation he and I had from the spaceship was really good. I didn't know he was sitting in his bathrobe, but he had thought about it. He had put together a bunch of really interesting questions, and he wasn't interested in talking about the past. He wanted to talk about, you know, the experience itself and what it meant for me and what it meant for him. And it was a really interesting time to compare notes with him. I was really pleased to talk with the man.
What were you thinking through the chaos?
Its launch is the most dangerous thing I've ever done. 5 months in space, and half of the risk of 5 months in space is in the first 9 minutes. So half of all the risk you're going to face is in that first 9 minutes. It's a hairy thing to do. Yeah. But you're not just along for the ride. You have 1,000 things that are your responsibility. And something we say in the astronaut business is there is no problem so bad that you can't make it worse. So we focus really hard on not making that happen. And
oh, that's so good, man.
Yeah, an important little philosophy to keep in mind, right? But also, there's a lot of things that we will be able to make better, and you can save the day at regular intervals. There's a short period in the middle of a Soyuz launch where if the vehicle goes into a failure mode, if you do nothing, you're going to fall into the atmosphere and pull like 22 or 24 G of your body weight, because it's like a stone falling from space and hitting the ocean, which is just barely survivable. But if you can react quickly enough, you can actually get control of the vehicle manually, move your lift vector to the vertical, and drop your G to something a lot less, a lot easier on your body. And that's just an example of one little moment in time you have to be hair-triggered for, to watch for all the symptoms and be able to jump on it and make things better. And the shuttle was full of moments like that. So that helps. Ignore the chaos, because it gives you something to focus on, and it gives you a role within your own destiny. You are not just riding along with your fingers crossed, thinking about the debris. You're actually focused on all of the things that you can do that are going to make this thing more successful. And you actually, it's not even scary. It is hugely participative, and partway up, it's in the book, but partway up my face was hurting because I didn't realize why, but about 90 seconds in, I'm going, why is my face hurting? And I realized because I'm smiling so much that my cheeks are cramping up. And that's really what I was feeling.
That's the best
was
pain in the
just
world.
this great joy that this was actually happening.
The book is An Astronaut's Guide to Life, and there's so much in there that you can learn. One of the conversations that in my group of friends we've been having of late, space wasn't something we'd even thought about as a possibility, but maybe as we get older, the last 4 or 5 years, just the concept of it, and the pictures you were tweeting, I can't even compute, man. The planets, the thing, how small we are, the big, the vast, I can't even deal. And because I don't have an afterlife, I don't care about life on other planets. If it's there, excellent. I do care, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But we all have this, we have this quest for, are we alone in the universe? You got to ponder that much closer than most will ever get.
I did, and I've thought about it a long time, yeah. Something we found out on Mars recently, Canada's got hardware on Mars. Canada has hardware orbiting Mars. We're in the thick of things. The main rover that's driving around Mars right now, Curiosity, in the last month or two, found out that in every cubic foot of Mars, there's a liter of water. Every cubic foot of dirt on Mars, there's a liter of water. So Mars has oceans of water just underneath the surface. It's cold now, but it used to be warm, used to have an atmosphere. Mars has the biggest volcano in the solar system. And anywhere on Earth that there's heat and there's water, there's life.
Right.
So we are looking for life on Mars. It may be really hard to find. It may not exist. But it might have developed 3 billion years ago. It may be in the fossil record of Mars. And if we can find life on Mars, we know there's life on Earth. That means there's life everywhere.
Right.
And that answers the question. So we're looking.
The thing about is there life, but for humans, I think sometimes it's not just is there life in other worlds, is there consciousness in other worlds?
Yeah, well, sometimes I wonder if there's consciousness here, right? But
Well put. Well put.
or at least conscience. But the odds are inevitable. We took the Hubble telescope and stared at the darkest part of the southern hemisphere for like a month and developed the image to see what we could see where we'd never seen anything before, and it was full of galaxies. And each galaxy is millions of stars, and within the last 10 years or so, we've started to be able to see planets, directly see planets around other stars. We've basically shown ourselves that every star has planets around it. And there's an unlimited number of stars. So to think that we're the only life in the universe is just sort of like thinking that we're the center of the universe. I think we just haven't figured out how to prove it yet.
If you're in a bar, 2 in the morning, you stayed later than you should, and there's a bunch of guys around you, and they're a little drunk, and maybe they're religious, and start getting into the God thing with you, what do you like in that conversation?
I try and not be in that conversation, actually.
Yeah, but you're watching the game, it's going late, it's a West Coast feed.
Astronaut walks into a bar. Yeah.
Do you think about spirituality and that sort of thing?
You know, on orbit, we talk about it all the time. How could you not? You know, within the astronaut corps, there are a lot of us, people from all around the world. There's every religion pretty much within all of the astronauts from around the world. And it's one of the things we talk about. And you look at the world, and it looks so rare and precious. It is really hard to think that it's random.
Yeah.
But the most important thing, I think, is that on orbit, we really respect each other's beliefs. Beliefs are what got us there. And whatever belief system gave you the strength to do all the things you needed to do in order to be one of the first humans to see the world that way, that belief system is a good one, and we really respect each other's up there.
I'm going to show you some pictures that you tweeted. You'd see if you can tell me if you can recognize what they are. Let's go to picture number 1. Did we bring number 1 up here? Number 1, do you know what that is?
These are irrigation central pivot fields, and this airfield looks like Saudi, but I'm not sure.
It might be, is it Egypt maybe?
This could be Egypt, yeah. It's hard to say from just this picture. But yeah, I'm not sure where that airfield is.
It's incredible what you can see from up there.
Yeah, it is. It's beautiful. And pictures are great, but the naked eye, I mean, you look at the picture after and go, well, it's like looking at a sunset, trying to take a picture of a glorious rolling sunset. You look at your picture after and go, well, that's pretty nice, but it's not how it looked when it poured in my eyes.
All right, bring up number 2. This is the one that really stuck with me, man. Look at this. This picture is incredible.
Yeah, this island and the heart it made, and it's like a certain vortex shedding that happens, and if you have a guitar string in the wind, and the wind will come and it'll set it vibrating like that, you get these von Karman vortices coming off the back of it, and you can actually see the math that von Karman came up with just from space, and it's also beautiful.
How about this one here? Do you know what this one is?
Yeah, that's in Manitoba. That's the long finger that sticks out into Lake, is it Winnipeg or Manitoba? I think it's Lake Winnipeg. Yeah. Didn't it just look like it was sticking its toe in the water to see if it was cold or not?
And the answer is yes.
The answer was, yeah, that water was cold.
Do you remember this picture?
I do not know that picture.
That is a very scientific picture taken with Hubble. That's your mustache.
A close-up of my mustache.
That's a close-up.
I like it.
Of your mustache.
Nice. How come there's gray in it? I don't understand it.
You didn't comb it in that day. What does space taste like?
When you're out on a spacewalk, of course, you're locked in your spacesuit, and it's like a little one-person spaceship. The beauty of it is we drop the pressure down inside, and it gets just whisper quiet in there, and all you can really hear is your own breathing. But the only sense that is really telling you you're in space, because you can't feel it or taste it, is the sight. You get to see. I was working away building Canadarm2, and suddenly I felt like vertigo, like when you're sitting at a stoplight and the truck next to you starts moving and you feel like you're moving. There's kind of that weird, inexplicable feeling that your body has. And I was going, what caused that? And I looked over, and it was Africa going by. And at the time I thought, distracted by Africa going by. That's never happened to me before. So vision is hugely powerful. But when you come back inside and you close the hatch and you do a quick repressurization of the airlock and you pop your helmet off, then you can smell and taste space.
Yeah.
Because the room is still redolent of it. And it's like almost a gunpowder sort of smell, like cordite or something, that leftover smell. It might be just coming from the off-gassing of the metal, but it is the taste and the smell of space is like just a whiff of brimstone, just a little bit of gunpowder in the distance.
Man, I got to tell you, we're lucky enough to interview people every day here, but you're one of the guys I'm most excited to ever talk about. What a pleasure.
Thanks for inviting me to the Red Show.
Commander Chris Hadfield. The book is a must-read. It's an astronaut's guide to life on Earth. Chris Hadfield, everybody. We'll be right back.
Thanks very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, man.